So since it's only a review session, we can as well start before others group in. That should be within few minutes. But so Shakti, you wrote that I could discuss series again. Is that what you wrote?
Yes, sir.
So by series you mean convergence of series or specific?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Convergence test, like different convergence.
Convergence test. Okay. Okay. Uh, so before I go to convergence test as asked by Shakti, let me start a bit earlier and notions of lim sup and lim inf, limit of a sequence.
So there is some kind of noise behind you, I think, from your side.
As the noise reduced, may not go down to zero, but
Yeah, it's fine now.
so for a sequence AN, you have notion of AN converges to alpha, and then so the notion of convergence of a sequence, lim sup of a sequence, and lim inf of a sequence. These three are basics for a sequence of numbers. And this lim sup and lim inf are defined for us, it is defined only for bounded sequences. I'm not allowing unbounded sequence. Some books will allow infinity and minus infinity to be lim sup lim inf, but we are not doing that. So for a bounded sequence, we have lim sup, we have lim inf, and then we have a notion of limit. And one very basic thing we have is that the limit exists if and only if lim sup equal to lim inf. For a bounded sequence, limit exists if and only if lim sup equal to lim inf, and then that common value is the limit. Okay, and the idea is we have done that. I'm just quickly going over the idea that lim sup equal to gamma means what? Lim sup is this means if you go slightly to the right of the lim sup, then from some point onwards everything is less than equal to This is misbehaving today. It is not writing. All right. So if we go slightly to the right of this lim sup, then we can get that an is less than equal to this for large n. And by what do you mean by for large n? That means there is a n naught such that for n bigger than equal to n naught, this thing happens. So while writing, you should not use the phrase for large n, but while thinking, it helps. If you think about it as instead of there exists n naught such that n bigger than equal to n naught, this thing happens. While thinking, one should think about this as for n large, this is what happens. Okay. That is the meaning of lim sup. And the smallest such gamma for which such a property holds is the lim sup. So you look at all gamma for which such a property holds, that eventually the sequence is less than equal to, if you go a little bit up of that, then eventually the sequence is less than equal to that value. And amongst all this, you pick the smallest. That is what is the notion of lim sup. Okay. And limit is likewise just for negative. You look at all the things which are a lower bound, you go slightly to the left of it, then it remains a lower bound eventually. For large n, it is greater than equal to that value. Amongst all such value, pick the largest. That is the limit. And let's try to show for now that limit equal to alpha means lim sup and limit both must be equal to alpha. Okay. So you have to show that lim sup is alpha. So to show that lim sup is alpha, we have to show that alpha is the upper bound eventually. So to show that for epsilon positive, there is a n naught such that an is less than equal to alpha plus epsilon or n bigger than equal to n. So this is one half of lim sup, and the other. So second thing is saying that alpha minus epsilon will not be an upper bound. What does that mean? Will not be an upper bound means you can go however far you go, there will always be a point after that for which an2 is bigger than equal to alpha minus epsilon. These two together is the notion of lim sup. Lim sup equal to a number means you go slightly to the right, then eventually you are below that, and you go slightly to the left. No matter how far you go, you will always be above that at least once.
So the inequalities are actually strict, right? I mean, it's not important, but precisely.
Yeah, you are right. And now, if you see, the limit notion says that there is a n naught for which n bigger than equal to n naught. The same an is always between alpha minus epsilon and alpha plus epsilon. So trivially, both the properties hold. Okay. So writing the proof is absolutely simple. You say this is what you have to show. Now, since convergence given epsilon, we have n naught for which an is between alpha minus epsilon to alpha plus epsilon. That's it. So that means both 1 and 2 are true. For 2, what do? You take n1 plus 1. Given any n1, you take n1 plus 1 and go above n naught. So that's it. So if you have chosen epsilon, let me call it n star, such that n bigger than equal to n star says alpha minus epsilon less than an less than alpha plus epsilon. This is coming from that limit is alpha. Now, here, how do we show this? With n naught, you call it n star. This property holds. For here, what do you do? For every n1, you have to show there is a n2 above n1. Well, we'll take maximum of n1 plus 1 and n star. So if you take n2 to be maximum of n1 plus 1 and n star, n2 will be bigger than n1. And if n2 is bigger than n star, it says this property holds. It is above a alpha minus epsilon. Okay. So, starting with limit existing to show that the lim sup must be the same, and likewise you can show limit must be the same. Okay. So the important thing is that if lim sup equal to lim inf, let's call it theta, then so well, so we have to show limit. Now the same epsilon we will work, but so let epsilon, this time let me try to write it carefully. Let epsilon be given. Using lim sup equal to theta. So using A, get n1 such that n bigger than equal to n1 implies an is less than theta plus epsilon. Theta is an upper bound. So you go slightly to the right of that, then from some point onwards, you are always below. So this one. Using B, get n2 such that n bigger than equal to n2 implies theta minus epsilon is less than n, less than an. And now take so now if n is bigger than equal to n naught, then it is bigger than n1, bigger than n2. That means both these properties hold. Therefore, n is between theta minus epsilon and theta plus epsilon, QED. Okay. So for large n, an is less than theta plus epsilon, and for large n, an is above theta minus epsilon. So for large n, an is between these two. That's the oral argument, and writing down, this is the way one would write. Any question about this?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I just had a comment. I mean, in one of the exercises that you gave regarding lim sup and lim inf, we showed that for every bounded sequence, there exists a convergent sequence that converges to the lim sup of it. So here also, I mean, using the sequential criteria of limit, we can comment that if a bounded sequence is there, then there is at least one subsequence that converges to its lim sup, and that is also equal to the lim inf of it. So if the limit has to exist, then all of them have to be same. So that is equal to the common value then.
That is for the previous one. Now here I have when you are, I said that if the limit exists, lim sup, lim inf are the same, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me also tell you that in an exam like the midsem, okay, you can use anything done in the class, but you state it precisely what is the statement you are using. Okay. Of course, normally I may not give something which I have done in class, but I might forget. Okay. So, for example, if I give you this question that if lim sup equal to lim inf equal to theta, then show that limit equal to theta. You can't say that part A done in class, part B done in class, therefore done in class. Then you at least read it out and write it out yourself. Okay. But if the same question is not asked, something else you want to use, you can state that we have seen it in the class, that carefully write that and then argue. So, for example, if you have to show that limit equal to alpha, then lim sup is equal to alpha, you can use that sequential criteria. That firstly, you have to argue that limit equal to alpha means A is bounded. Then you can say that since it's a bounded sequence, lim sup exists. Let lim sup be some number. Then there is a subsequence which converges to that. If the whole sequence converges to alpha, the subsequence must also converge to alpha. Therefore, lim sup equal to same number alpha. So all these things you have to write out carefully. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a related question, so we've done a sequential criterion for continuity in class, but we have not explicitly shown that the same idea can work for limits as well. So if I wanted to use that in the exam, would I need to prove it as well, or can I just state that?
No. So what is the equivalent thing for the sequences? What is the equivalent one now?
So what I mean is, if every sequence, sorry, 1 second, sir. Yeah. So if we take an arbitrary sequence in the domain of a function, and
but there is no function here, right?
Right, sir. Sorry, sir. Maybe I'll be a little more clear on what I'm asking. I mean that if we're talking about a function and we want to show that a function's limit as x tends to a point is something, we have not explicitly looked at a sequential criterion for this. So would I be?
So what did we use the sequential criteria for?
Continuity, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So if you want to just say that the limit is this, you can use the same criteria. That proof is essentially the same, so you can use.
Okay, sir. That's what I wanted to confirm. Thank you.
I thought you were talking about limit of a sequence. Then sequential criteria is a confusing phrase. That's why I was wondering what is it that you are asking.
Right, sir. Sorry, I should be a little more clear on that.
All right. So lim sup equal to lim inf says the limit exists and is equal. And we have also done that there is a subsequent. So two things. You can use this, that if if an is a sequence which is converging to alpha, and you take any sub bk equal to a n k, n1 less than n2 less than dot dot dot. So this is a subsequence. Then bk will also converge to alpha. Well, let me try to prove this for you. You are given that an converges. So given an epsilon, there is a n naught, such that n bigger than equal to n naught says alpha minus epsilon less than an less than alpha plus epsilon. Now for bk, you have to show. I claim the same n naught will work, because if k is bigger than equal to n naught, then by the way the subsequence is constructed, nk will also be bigger than equal to k bigger than equal to n naught. And therefore, bk, which is equal to, bk will be a and k, it will be belong to alpha minus epsilon to alpha plus epsilon. So this is a very trivial argument. Okay. Now, suppose I give you that an is a sequence. If you are given that you take a subsequence such that this is convergent. This is called a convergent subsequence. Original sequence, we don't know whether it is converging or not. So if you are told that all convergent subsequences converge to some number, let's say 5. If you are told that you have a sequence such that all convergent subsequences converge to 5, then you can claim that the original sequence itself converges to 5. Because lim sup, if lim sup is alpha, there will be a subsequence which goes to alpha. That subsequence is going to 5. So lim sup is 5. Likewise lim. But something which I didn't say, but it is extremely important. Without that, the statement is false. That if you have a sequence A which is bounded, because we are talked about lim sup lim only for bounded sequences. In fact, in general, this is even false. You take the sequence an equal to n. You can claim trivially that every convergent subsequence converges to 5. There is no convergent subsequence. Right? Or you can take an equal to 5 if n is even and an equal to n if n is odd. True, again, every convergent subsequence converges to 5, but there are subsequences which are blowing off to infinity. So this statement is there only for bounded sequences. So to begin with, if you have a bounded sequence, and you can see that if every convergent sequence converges to 5, then the sequence itself converges to 5, because there is a subsequence which goes to lim sup, therefore lim sup is 5. There is a subsequence which goes to lim n, which is also 5. Therefore, lim sup equal to lim n equal to 5. Therefore, the sequence is converging to 5. So,
actually, being bounded is necessary for it to converge, right? For a sequence.
yes.
If a sequence is not bounded, then it actually does not converge at all.
Yes.
So, I mean, if we are talking about convergence of sequence, then we are necessarily restricted with bounded sequences only.
Yeah, but if no, the point I'm telling you is that you are just given a sequence an. Okay. If you want to invoke this criteria that every convergent sequence converges to 5, you want to conclude that the sequence itself converges to 5. That assessment is true only if an is given to be bounded to begin with.
Okay, sir.
Okay. let me write that statement here. Every convergent sequence dk converges to some theta fixed. Then if then we can conclude that A itself converges to theta. This E, if you are given that A is bounded, is a must to draw this conclusion. That's all I'm saying. Otherwise, I dished out a few examples where it fails. Right? And convergence of sequences, we have done two other facts. One was that if you have a monotone sequence, that is increasing sequence, and AN is bounded, then AN converges. And you can just take the lim sup bounded, so lim sup will exist and lim sup will be the one where it will converge. If you are not sure how will you write this proof, you work it out, talk to each other. If not, ask me, but this is an extremely important fact. And likewise, if the decreasing sequence and AN is bounded, then AN converges. And writing down rules as to what part you can use and from what done in class and what you need to actually write out the argument is somewhat difficult, but I hope you understand. So for example, suppose I ask you to show this, that monotonically decreasing sequence which is bounded, it must converge. You can't say that, okay, let's take minus of AN, then it's a positive increasing sequence. That we have done in class. And therefore this holds. These were essentially the same statements. And you can't use one to prove the other in the exam. Okay.
Sir?
Yeah.
So what have you written? AN is something HAD. You've written AN is greater than or equal to AN plus 1.
Bounded.
Then,
Second one is bounded. Let me not.
okay. Sorry, yeah.
Good. Anything which you can't make out what I have written, please ask me. Okay. Because okay, so increasing sequence converges, increasing bounded sequence converges, a decreasing bounded sequence converges, and the two together are called monotone function, monotone sequence bounded. Then they converge. And then we had a Cauchy criteria. Which was AN is called Cauchy, if for all epsilon there exists a n naught such that for n bigger than equal to n naught, an minus an is less than epsilon. And we have proven that the Cauchy sequence, if you have a sequence which is satisfying Cauchy criteria, then it converges. And the proof will be one to conclude that from here that the Cauchy sequence must be bounded. How will you show that a Cauchy sequence must be bounded? You take epsilon to be 1. Then there is a n naught such that this happens.
We just fix epsilon and the m in n comma n.
So then you take n naught and then a n naught plus minus 1. These are the bounds. Right. So this proof, this part that Cauchy sequence is bounded, you should not say that let epsilon be given, because who will give you for your argument? So you choose. You can choose 1, you can choose it 10, you can choose it 0.001, doesn't matter. You choose epsilon, apply the criteria, and then produce upper and lower bound. Now, one catch that let's see. If you take epsilon to be 1, get n naught, and then you have that for n bigger than equal to n and n bigger than equal to n naught, a n naught minus am is less than 1. So from n naught onwards, am is between a n naught plus minus 1. It still doesn't tell you that a n naught plus minus 1 are the bounds. But finitely many, you can always take maximum and minimum, and that will be finite numbers. So upper bound will be m1 will be maximum a1 up to a n naught, a n naught plus 1. And minimum will be m2, minimum a1, a2, a n naught minus 1. These two are upper and lower bounds. Once you show upper and lower bounds exist, you have that lim-sup limits are there. And you can use the Cauchy criteria to show that lim-sup equal to limit. You can use the sequential criteria that there is a subsequence which is going to our upper lim-sup, there is a subsequence which is going to the lim-inf, and using that, that their difference must be less than epsilon and so on. So or take lim-sup and try to show that that itself is the limit, or take lim-inf and try to show that that itself is the limit. Any of these two tricks will work. So for a sequence, we have basically, for a bounded sequence, lim-sup lim-inf exists. Monotone, the limit exists. Cauchy limit exists. Lim-sup equal to limit exists. These are our tricks of the trade available to us. Okay. Everything else you have to deduce from one of these. All right. So some of you may have come later. I had already sent by email yesterday that based on requests from some of you through the teaching assistants, I'm not going to use any question. I'm not going to include differentiability of a function in the midsem, this midsem. Okay. So this midsem will be sequences, lim-sup, lim-inf, Of course, real number, least upper bound, very little about that, but you should know what it is. And then continuity of a function. Okay. Sequences series. So there was also a request to do the series, and let me briefly go do that. Continuity we will do on Tuesday exclusively, about discussion on continuity, the Tuesday session. But if some of you want, we can try to find one other time slot for this. But preferably you do it collectively so that I don't keep repeating the same thing to different people. But we'll see about that. So let me now come to this series. Okay. And in school, you would have done these things, but they were not as properly defined most times. And our precise definition is that what is this equal to, or what is this definite meaning? Well, you look at the partial sums. And we say that this series converges if and only if the partial sum, sequence of partial sums converges. That is the definition of convergence of a series. You take partial sum, if the partial sequence of partial sums converges, then the series converges, and the limit is the limit of these partial sums. Is the limit of the is the sum of the series. Okay. And here you hit the first roadblock, which is that you have to treat the two cases, that this separately, non-negative integers, series of non-negative integers you have to treat differently, and a general series you have to treat differently. Okay. And non-negative functions, you have only two options: it blows off to infinity or it converges, because the partial sums are increasing. And we have already shown that if it is a bounded sequence, then this limit must exist. And if it is not a bounded sequence, then what does it mean? That means it is blowing off to infinity. Okay. So one important fact about sequences, which we use when we do series, is, let me say, put it here. Suppose UN and VN are sequences such that if you have bounded sequences, and if Vn converges to 0, then Un also converges to 0. Trivial. Once we can bound V's, we can bound U's. And this is an idea. The proof is easy to write. And this proof, or this idea, gets used not as a fact, but as a part of the argument which will prove this gets used again and again. So you have a series you have two series under discussion, okay, and you want to explore whether they converge or not. Suppose you are given that mod an less than equal to bn. So this automatically already tells you that bn is non-negative. So this summation exists is same as saying that or this is finite. So it depends on some usage. Both mean the same thing. Summation exists. What does exist means that this is an increasing sequence. When we say that limit exists, that means it is bounded. Or this is less than infinity. They both mean the same thing. And this infinite sum is also exists or is defined. Summation an is also defined. That means summation n, partial sums of that are also converging. Okay? And the idea is the following. Let Sn is the partial sum of an, n k equal to 1 to n ak, and let's say Tn is the partial sum of bk. Okay. What does your given condition tell you? Given condition tells you that Sn is less than equal to Tn, but that is not enough, as you will see. So you are told that Tn converges. Right? But that means Tn is Cauchy. And if you take any m and n, then Tn minus Tm is greater than equal to Sn minus Sm, absolute value. Why? Because Sn minus Sm will be summation from m to n, and Tn minus Tm will be summation from m to n. The Tm is the sum of B's, Sm's, the difference in S's is the sums of A's. Term by term, there is an inequality. So when you sum this whole, so that is because this is equal to sum from k equal to m plus 1 to n ak, and this is equal to sum from m plus 1 to n bk. So given condition tells you that partial sums also like this. And from the idea about the sequences that I said, that if this can be made less than epsilon, you can choose a n naught such that Tn minus Tm absolute value is less than epsilon for Nm bigger than n naught. Same n naught works for Sn. Therefore, Sn is also Cauchy. Therefore, Sn converges. Okay. So, construction work going on, so I'll just have to speak louder. So this is one extremely important aspect of series, that because your ANs may be given in a form where getting hold of exactly what does that partial sum look like and to argue its convergence can be complicated. But if you can bound it by something which is easier to handle, then we are done. Okay. So once again, if you have two series, first one, an absolute value, the nth term of the first one less than equal to the nth term of the second one, and therefore second one is non-negative. And if the second one is convergent, then the first one is also convergent. And the proof is coming by comparing, and that is where critically Cauchy's convergence means Cauchy. This is coming up in the proof. Okay. Yeah.
Sir, like, can we use equivalence between Cauchy and convergence of a sequence in exam without proof?
At least you state that.
Yes, sir.
that yes, it is in the class where I have, unless I ask you to show that every Cauchy sequence must converge. If I ask that, then you have to write out a proof. Anything else you can use that Cauchy is same as convergence. Yes.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as I gave you a general rule that, any statement which we have proven in class, okay, you state it precisely and then you can use it. Except if the same thing has been asked to prove. That's all.
Yes, sir.
And the one rule, for example, if essentially I have asked something which is done in class and you just quote that and there is nothing much written about it. Okay. It's a vague decision to, what to do. So what I could do for this or for any other reason, anything else you have written which is not very clear to me what you have written because of your handwriting, because of your notation, whatever. Okay. I can call you. I'll send in general, it may be a good idea to share everybody's direct phone number with me. Okay. Or I can send an email to fix a time, but I can call you to answer some questions. Now, I'm not going to ask you a new question which has not been asked in mid-sem, that how will you prove this? No. Also, if something is clearly written in your answer, I have no reason to call you. But I can call you to ask you to explain this step. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So don't think that, oh, sir is calling me, so sir suspects that I have done a copying from somewhere else and so on and so forth. No. I may just call you to see how your mind is working, to ask you to explain. How about creating a WhatsApp group? Yeah, you can create a WhatsApp group with me. Yeah. But I would like to talk. I will not, so I can mention somebody's name and say, can you give me your phone number? WhatsApp group, I guess, once you are part of the group, you can read the phone numbers. Yeah. So create a group with me as well. That should suffice. You don't have to separately send me mails. It is easier for me also. Instead of trying to locate what is your phone number from the group, it is easy to locate.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now for series, non-negative sequence, then the partial sums are only monotonically increasing. So the only question is they're bounded or not. Okay. So monotonically increasing series, all we need is this bounded or not. Suppose you are told that sometimes I use the phrase exists, sometimes is defined, but both have the same meaning. So suppose you are given that this infinite series is, the summation of this series is defined. Proof n must go to 0. How would you do that?
Sir, can I try?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is defined, which means that the sequence of partial sums converge. And so there is some upper bound, eventual upper bound, that we can state for the summation. Now, if
upper bound, upper bound will not do because ans are not given to be non-negative.
Okay.
Sir, we can use Cauchy criterion again for consecutive terms.
Yes. So in words you could use, you'll have to write down that this is defined. That means partial sums converge. Therefore, partial sums are Cauchy, and successive terms also therefore are in the same group. So the difference in successive one becomes less than epsilon. Yeah. You will have to write it out, but easy to remember this phrase. Then you want to write down epsilon delta thing, you write down. Okay. But critically, you can use Cauchy. Yeah. So the so when we come to criteria and typically we are looking at when the sequence itself is defined in terms of some x power n is also hanging here. So you have to, for which x is this converging and for which x it is not converging. Then we can bring in the ans later, but criteria for summation an, when is this defined and not defined, and the test can be inconclusive. This, okay. So simplest is that you look at so the original sequence summation an, this is defined if limit of an plus 1 by an exists is r and is less than 1. If the limit exists and is bigger than 1, does not converge. Limit not defined or is defined and equal to 1, inconclusive. So inconclusive anyway, nothing to prove. We have to show that if alpha, the limit exists and is less than 1, then we have to show convergence. If it is bigger than 1, then you have to show it is divergent. It is the limit is, this is not defined. So not defined, bigger than 1, it is trivial because if this is bigger than, if r and r is bigger than 1, then from some point onwards, it is between 1 and r, you can take 1 plus r by 2. That's a number less than r, bigger than 1. So from some n naught onwards, an will be, an plus 1 by an will be less than this power, ratio will be less than this. From there, you can prove that ans are going to be above some constant times 1 plus r by 2 to the power n. Ans are greater than equal to this. This is a number bigger than 1, so its power n will blow up and therefore ans are not converging to 0. So this is a trivial case that you can argue that ans are not converging when it is bigger than 1. Less than 1, well, this time once again, if we take 1 plus r by 2, then r less than 1 plus r by 2 less than r. So you can say pick some number between 1 and r, but usually I find it easier to, if you can work out, explicitly state what that number is. R is less than 1. Then 1 plus r by 2 will also be less than 1. It will be strictly bigger than r. And we are told that there is a n naught such that a n plus 1 by a n is less than equal to 1 plus r by 2. Yeah. Therefore, we will get that a n is less than equal to a n naught times 1 plus r by 2 n minus n naught. So from here we can write down a little bit and say that eventually, so in general, an is less than equal to some constant times 1 plus r by 2 to the power n, where c is properly chosen. If you're writing out a proof, you have to write down how will you choose c. Okay, and therefore, now we are back, and this is absolute. I should have. So,
sir, but then we are just showing that an converges to 0, right?
No, but we are showing that an is less than equal to 1 plus r by n. Now we are going to use that summation s power n equal to 1 to infinity defined if S is less than 1. Something which you did in maybe very early days in school. Because what is the partial sum? Partial sum you can compute. S. So now let us say un equal to summation k equal to 1 to n s power k is equal to 1 minus s power k or k plus 1. I am getting confused. K plus 1. And s is less than 1. So s power k plus 1 will go to 0. And therefore this will be fine. This is increasing less than equal to 1 or whatever. In any case, we get that this partial sum is less than equal to 1 by 1 minus s. So partial sum sequence of this converges. Therefore, summation Sn is defined. And then mod An is less than equal to Sn, s power n. So summation An is defined. Right?
So is it necessary for the ANs to be non-negative?
Well, for large
Or ultimately
they will be, because the ratios or all can be negative. They are of the same sign.
okay. Okay.
Ultimately. Right.
So could you explain that again? Why AN doesn't have to be absolute? You said something.
AN doesn't have to be?
No, Neelabja asked if they have to be absolute, right? And you said something. Could you repeat that?
So, yeah, so actually when we test the series, this tests, okay. If I had defined this to begin with absolute values, absolute AN plus 1 divided by absolute AN is R less than 1. Okay. That would have been easier, but I didn't do that. So I was concluding here that in any case, all ANs will have to be of the same sign, because after some point they are all their ratio is positive, so they can't be of opposite signs.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Answer. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So but this is where, to conclude, we are using this important thing that we did, that if summation Bn is defined, then summation An is also defined if mod An is less than equal to Bn. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So this is extremely crucial, because this ratio test is the simplest test, and to use that we have to use this fact. So all convergence criteria tests, convergence is proven using this. So you somehow cook up a Bn for which An is less than equal to Bn, absolute An is less than equal to Bn, and Bn is some object that you know what it will converge or not converge. Okay. And the object that you know will converge or not converge are of this type only. Basically they all start with this summation s power n. You know that when s is between 0 and 1, the summation s power n converges. And you can prove by having to prove that s power k is going to 0, but even that is not necessary, because this partial sum sequence is increasing, and using this trick you can show that it is bounded by 1 over 1 minus s. So it converges, QED. You can actually say that it will converge to 1 over 1 minus s, and then for that you have to show that s power n is going to 0. But just convergence quickly follows. So this is a rare case where you can use the partial sum idea, because you know exactly which series is converging, and then use this sum. I need to leave soon today because I'm actually, after a long gap, I'm going to be traveling to my hometown. After 20 months, I am traveling, leaving Chennai after 20 months, which is, I don't know when was the last it may have happened. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to do was quickly mention was the root test. So if nth root of mod an is less than r less than 1, then also summation an converges. This we can say less than equal to r, where r is less than 1. Once again, the idea is that if nth root of this is less than equal to r, then an is less than equal to r power n. And r is less than 1, an is less than r power n for eventually. If lim sup is less than equal to r, let me write it again. So we can go to between 1 and r, so 1 plus r by 2. So that means that for there n not such that an is less than equal to 1 plus r by 2 power n for n bigger than equal to n naught. Nth root of an is less than equal to 1 plus r by 2, and I have just mixed that to the power n, so this. And r less than 1 says 1 plus r by 2 power n converges, and therefore summation mod an converges, and therefore summation an converges. Okay. So so what I will do is some of the ideas which I used today, okay, which I didn't write out carefully, but I just said in words, I will pose those as problems, practice problems with parts and send it to you. If any of those you cannot do, you have to alert me, and then we'll have to carefully do it again. Okay. So that is the task for me. Hopefully, I will be able to do it tomorrow, because today I am traveling. But I'll create this series of practice problems, I will call. Okay. These are essentially things which we did here, or very close to those, which I may not have written out in carefully. Okay. So, for example, let's see. You have an, bn, and you are told that an equal to bn for n bigger than equal to, say, 1 million. First million ones, what happens? We have not said anything. So for some large n, so million, an and bn are equal. Okay. Then if an converges, so will bn. If bn converges, so will an. So changing or tinkering with first few doesn't matter, which is a very key idea which you should be able to write down a proof. I will put such things in my practice problems. Okay. All right. Today, since I am to travel, I need to leave, and rare event that I am closing the class early. Usually, I am available for discussion after the class is over. But today is a special case, and if you want, we can fix up yet another time. But I know you have other midsem also coming up, so that may be tough. In any case, Tuesday I'll be there. And We can try to find the alternate time slot on Monday if some of you want. Okay. All right.
Sir.
Okay.
Sir?
Yeah.
Oh no, what is BN here? Sorry, I didn't catch that. What were we talking about AN?
Okay, so you have two series, AN and BN. Okay, two sequences, and we are talking about whether summation AN converges and summation BN converges. And if you are told that for some large n, say n bigger than equal to 1 million, AN equal to BN, then I am saying that summation AN converges if and only summation BN is different. That's Tinkering with first few doesn't matter how many. It doesn't change the order of the character of the series.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, especially in this ratio test, we are talking of lim sup. This will be only for large n. Something has been told. You have not been told anything for first few n's, but doesn't matter. Okay.
So, and just another thing, you used lim sup for root test, but you didn't use lim sup for ratio test, does it?
Yeah, because ratio test maybe it will work with the ratio test there as well. But examples finding where it works with ratio but not otherwise is complicated, because an plus 1 by an and an minus divided by an minus 1, if unless both of them have similar character, construction of examples is not ruling it out, but yeah.
So because in Rodin it says lim sup, that's why I was a bit confused when you wrote limit.
Yeah, so somehow maybe I was taught the root test when I did not know lim sup, and after I was taught lim sup, I didn't do because yeah, but the same proof will work. You're right. But finding examples may be more complicated. But the same proof will work with lim sup. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.